If you're still not a believer in basic income, you're officially in the minority. According to a recent survey, 55% of likely voters now support what's become known as a guaranteed or basic income. The survey was conducted by Data for Progress and Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, the initiative launched by Michael Tubbs, the former mayor of Stockton, California. Stockton became the nation's highest profile experiment with basic income in decades when it gave qualifying residents $500 a month with no strings attached on how they spent it. The results of year one were immensely successful. Tubbs is now an advisor to California Governor Gavin Newsom, and the state of California, in a unanimous vote by the legislature, just became the first in the nation to approve a state-funded guaranteed income program. The Golden State will spend about $35 million on the endeavor. It's up to local governments to create the terms of their particular program, and then they can apply for the funds. The legislature, however, is placing a preference on programs that prioritize expectant mothers and young adults who recently left foster care. Lawmakers also left the size of the payments, typically between $500 and $1,000, up to the municipalities to determine. I spoke with Michael Tubbs about the California UBI news. He admitted that the unanimous bipartisan decision shocked him, especially given the doubt he faced just a few years back when the Stockton pilot was announced.
Well, I don't agree with it. I think it makes no sense.
It does not incentivize you to do more. It essentially allows you to stay and be slothful. So I'm not sure why they continue to push this as if simply being a human being means you deserve money for nothing.
He also believes that so much of the political support for UBI today is boosted by the pandemic.
People weren't allowed to work. People were told to stay home. People were told to shelter in place. People were getting sick and couldn't go to work. And I think it caused everyone to reckon with the fact that our economy wasn't working. You had Mitt Romney calling for a child tax credit. Like all these people, I think, began to realize that no, this is serious. It's no longer a political thing. It's about survival. And our people deserve to survive.
The $300 per month child tax credit is arguably the most popular program to date from the Biden administration. If you don't believe me, just ask the parents of TikTok.
Hide the money, y'all. There's poor people around. With your broke ass.
It's essentially a form of UBI and is being lauded as the largest anti-poverty measure since the 60s. Any parent with a child under the age of 18 qualifies as long as you make under $75,000 filing single or under $150,000 annually for couples filing jointly. According to the IRS, the money will reach nearly 90% of children, and there are no stipulations for how or where the money is spent, which is one of the fundamentals of today's UBI.
No government official is smart enough to think of all the ways all the people need to spend money. And I learned that firsthand when we were designing the pilot in Stockton. Because in our listening session, literally everyone I talked to had a different reason how they would spend the $500, and they all made sense. One lady talked about she would get her transmission fixed so she could go to work. Is there a government program that gives money for you to fix your car? So I think that's what a guaranteed income represents. And it doesn't mean that people don't need housing vouchers, that people don't need food vouchers, but it does mean that if you're struggling with housing and you're struggling with food, you're probably struggling with other things too. There's probably like a lot of other unmet needs. So why not give people the flexibility and the freedom to address their needs?
Now that universal basic income is picking up steam, with the entire state of California taking on the initiative, Tubbs says he'll be spending the foreseeable future pushing the federal government to make basic income permanent, specifically the child tax credit. He sees it as a way for Democrats to win in 2022.
What we'll learn is that we can trust people with money. We'll learn that parents want to parent, that maybe some of the issues we have, some parents not showing up the way we want them to show up, maybe it's triggered by economic insecurity and having to work themselves to death and being stressed and anxious and having all the mental health implications that come with that. Right. And I think it also show us that this is a way to make our country stronger, more united, more, and it has to be made permanent. And it's going to be very hard after 6 months when folks are used to this little $300, $200 to take it away. So my hope is that it becomes a permanent part of our social safety net, just like Social Security, just like Medicare. It'll do so much for families, for parents, and most importantly for children to grow up in households where at least the basics are met. I hope the question is, why did we do this sooner? Like, what took so long?